When my dad called me 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, his voice cracked in a way I had never heard before. David had always been the strong, stoic type who never asked for help from anyone, especially not from his daughters. But that Tuesday evening, as I sat in my small Portland apartment, after another 12-hour shift at the marketing firm, his words hit me like a warm embrace I did not know I desperately needed. "Christina, sweetie, we really need you here this year. Please come home." The vulnerability in his tone made my heart ache with a mixture of joy and concern. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you will not believe how this family reunion turned into the biggest shock of my life. What started as a desperate plea from a father became a story that will make you question everything about family loyalty. I hung up that phone feeling like I was floating on air. For the first time in years, my family actually needed me. Not Sarah, my perfect older sister with her picture-perfect life in Denver, but me. Growing up, I'd always been the overlooked daughter, the one who tried too hard while Sarah effortlessly captured every bit of attention and praise. She was the cheerleader, the honor student, the one who married her high school sweetheart Marcus right after college, and immediately started popping out grandchildren for our parents to spoil. Meanwhile, I had moved 800 miles away to Portland, chasing dreams that seemed to matter to no one but myself. I worked 60-hour weeks building marketing campaigns for tech startups, lived in a cramped studio apartment, and spent most holidays alone because flights home were expensive. And honestly, I never felt like my presence was particularly wanted anyway. Sarah's family gatherings were elaborate affairs where I always felt like an awkward third wheel watching her kids perform for grandparents who hung on their every word. But this call felt different. Dad's voice carried an urgency, a genuine need that made me think maybe something had shifted. Maybe they had finally realized that family meant more than just the people who lived nearby. Maybe Sarah's perfect life was not so perfect after all. And they needed someone reliable, someone who had actually learned to take care of herself in the real world. Without hesitation, I marched into my boss's office the next morning and used up every single vacation day I had saved. Jennifer raised her eyebrows when I explained I needed the entire week off, but she had seen how hard I worked and approved it immediately. I spent the rest of that day online booking the most expensive flight I could find because last-minute tickets during holiday season were brutal. 6 hours from Portland to Denver with a layover in Seattle that would give me just enough time to grab coffee and call Dad to confirm my arrival time. The shopping came next. I wanted this visit to be special to show them that I had made something of myself despite being the family afterthought. I bought a beautiful cashmere scarf for Mom in her favorite shade of burgundy, a leather wallet for Dad with his initials engraved, and educational toys for Sarah's kids that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. For Sarah, I chose a spa gift set because I remembered her mentioning how stressed she felt juggling 3 children under 8 years old. Dad called again 2 days before my flight, and his voice sounded lighter, almost relieved. "Just come home, sweetheart. We miss you so much." He did not elaborate on what exactly they needed me for, but I assumed it was emotional support. Maybe Mom was going through something health-related. Maybe Sarah and Marcus were having marriage problems. Whatever it was, I felt ready to step up and be the daughter they had always needed but never appreciated. The flight itself passed in a blur of anticipation and nervous energy. I found myself daydreaming about long conversations with Mom in the kitchen while we prepared Thanksgiving dinner together, about Dad and I finally having those father-daughter talks we had never quite managed when I was younger. I pictured Sarah and me bridging the gap that had widened over the years, maybe even becoming real sisters, instead of just relatives who shared DNA. As the plane descended into Denver International Airport, I pressed my face against the window and watched the familiar landscape spread out below me. The Rocky Mountains stood majestically in the distance, and the sprawling suburbs looked exactly like they had when I left for college 15 years ago. Home. After all this time, I was finally coming home to a family that wanted me there. The Uber driver helped me wrestle my oversized suitcase out of the trunk as I stood in the driveway of my childhood home, taking in details that immediately felt wrong. A brand new white SUV sat in the garage where Dad's old truck used to live, and through the living room window, I could see neat stacks of luggage piled near the front door. My stomach began to twist with the first hint of unease, but I pushed the feeling down and rang the doorbell with trembling fingers. Dad opened the door wearing a smile that did not quite reach his eyes, and before I could even step inside for a proper hug, the words tumbled out of his mouth like he had been rehearsing them. "Perfect timing, Christina. You are here just in time to babysit Sarah's kids while we take a little family vacation." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Babysit. But Dad? I thought this was a family reunion. You said you needed me here. Well, we do need you, he continued, ushering me inside while carefully avoiding my confused gaze. Sarah and Marcus have had this resort weekend planned for months, and your mother and I decided to join them. 5 days in Aspen, all expenses paid by Marcus's company. But someone needs to watch Emma, Tyler, and Zoe, and you know how expensive babysitters are these days. I stood frozen in the entryway, my expensive luggage suddenly feeling like a monument to my own stupidity. But I took vacation time from work. I flew 6 hours to get here. I thought something was wrong, that you actually needed me for something important. Dad waved his hand dismissively, already moving toward the kitchen, where I could hear the chaos of children's voices mixed with Sarah's laughter. Oh, come on, honey. You do not have kids or a husband to worry about anyway. Besides, it will be good practice for when you finally settle down. Before I could process the casual cruelty of his words, Sarah appeared in the hallway with 3-year-old Zoe clinging to her leg, 6-year-old Tyler racing around with a toy airplane, and 8-year-old Emma trailing behind with her tablet. Sarah looked amazing, as always, dressed in expensive athleisure wear, with her blonde hair perfectly styled, even though she was supposedly in the middle of packing for a trip. Christina, you made it! She gave me a quick perfunctory hug that smelled like designer perfume and subtle condescension. I was just telling the kids about their fun week with Auntie Christina. You are going to have such a blast with them. Tyler chose that exact moment to crash his airplane into a lamp, sending it wobbling dangerously, while Zoe started crying because Emma had taken her favorite stuffed animal. The noise level in the house was absolutely deafening, and I watched Sarah's face remain completely serene, as if this level of chaos was perfectly normal and acceptable. Now, kids! Sarah called out in a sing-song voice that somehow managed to sound both sweet and mocking. Remember what Mommy told you about being good for Auntie Christina? Try not to let them wipe their snot on you too much, she added to me with a laugh that made my skin crawl. Oh wait, you are probably used to cleaning up messes by now, right? I heard Portland can be pretty rough. Mom finally emerged from the bedroom wheeling a designer suitcase behind her, and she offered me a weak smile that was heavy with guilt. Hi, sweetheart. I'm so glad you could make it. The kids will have so much fun with you. Mom, did you know about this plan when Dad called me? I asked directly, searching her face for any sign that someone in this family had been honest with me. She opened her mouth to answer, but Sarah jumped in first. Of course she knew. We have been planning this getaway for weeks. Marcus worked so hard to arrange everything through his company, and we thought it would be perfect timing since you are always talking about how you never get to spend time with the kids. I tried to remember ever saying anything like that and came up completely blank. In fact, most of our phone conversations over the past year had been brief and superficial, with Sarah usually cutting them short because one of the kids needed something or Marcus was calling her away. The house itself looked like a tornado had swept through it. Toys were scattered across every surface, there were mysterious sticky spots on the hardwood floors, and I could see a pile of dishes in the kitchen sink that had clearly been accumulating for days. This was not the warm, welcoming family home I had been dreaming about during my flight. So when exactly are you leaving for this trip? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Tonight, Sarah announced cheerfully. Our flight leaves at 8, so we need to head to the airport soon. I left detailed instructions on the refrigerator about the kids' schedules, what they like to eat, bedtimes, all that important stuff. Emma has soccer practice on Wednesday, Tyler has preschool Tuesday and Thursday, and Zoe just follows along wherever you take her. Easy peasy. I looked around at the 3 children who were now my responsibility for the next 5 days, none of whom seemed particularly interested in bonding with their aunt. Emma was absorbed in her tablet. Tyler was now using his airplane to attack the coffee table, and Zoe had moved on from crying to whimpering while clutching a juice box that was clearly leaking onto the couch. Wait, I said slowly, the full scope of this disaster finally sinking in. You are all leaving tonight, all of you, for 5 days. Just like old times, Sarah said brightly, completely missing or ignoring the growing horror in my voice. Remember when we were kids and you always ended up cleaning up after everyone? Some things never change, right? That comment about some things never changing hit me like a physical slap. Standing there in my childhood home, surrounded by chaos and family members who had manipulated me into flying across the country to provide free childcare. I felt 15 years old again, invisible, used, taken for granted. Tyler's airplane collided with my leg hard enough to leave a mark, and when I looked down at him, he stuck his tongue out at me before running away laughing. Emma did not even acknowledge my presence, completely absorbed in whatever mindless game was playing on her screen. Zoe, meanwhile, had managed to spill her entire juice box onto the cream-colored couch cushions, creating a spreading purple stain that nobody else seemed to notice or care about. "Kids will be kids," Sarah said with a shrug when she finally noticed the mess. "You will figure it out. You always were good at figuring things out on your own." That was when something inside me snapped. Not the explosive kind of anger that burns hot and fast, but the cold, calculating fury that comes from years of accumulated resentment finally reaching a breaking point. I had spent my entire adult life trying to prove to this family that I was worth their time and attention. I had worked myself to exhaustion, saved money I could not afford to spend, and sacrificed my own holiday plans to rush to their aid when they claimed to need me. "You want to know something?" I said, my voice steady and calm in a way that immediately got everyone's attention. Even the kids seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere and turn to look at me. "I quit my job to be here." The room went completely silent. Sarah's perfectly glossed lips formed a small O of surprise while Dad's face went pale. Mom dropped the handle of her suitcase and it fell over with a loud thud. "You what?" Dad stammered suddenly, looking like he was beginning to understand the magnitude of what they had done. "I quit my job," I repeated, enjoying the way the words seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "I used up all my vacation days, then walked into my boss's office and resigned so I could spend Thanksgiving week with my family who desperately needed me. That marketing position I worked 5 years to build gone. The promotion I was supposed to find out about next month, gone. All because my father called me crying about how much he needed his daughter to come home." Sarah was the first to recover from the shock, and typically her reaction was to go on the attack. "That is completely insane. Why would you quit a job without talking to us first? We never asked you to do anything that dramatic." "Really?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Dad's number. "Should I play back the voicemail where you begged me to come home because the family really needed me? Or how about the follow-up call where you said you missed me so much and couldn't wait to see me?" "Now, Christina," Dad started, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he had always used when he thought I was being unreasonable. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. You can find another job when you get back to Portland. This is just a few days of helping out family." But that is not even the best part. I continued, reaching into my purse and pulling out the manila envelope I had been carrying for 3 weeks. "You want to know the real reason I was so willing to drop everything and come running when you called?" I pulled out the ultrasound photos and the lab results, holding them up so everyone could see. The black and white images were unmistakable, even to people who had never seen an ultrasound before. 12 weeks along, perfectly healthy, due in late May. "I am pregnant," I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "And you just asked your pregnant daughter to babysit 3 children while you go on vacation." Sarah's scream could probably have been heard 3 blocks away. "You are lying. You cannot even keep a boyfriend longer than 6 months. There is no way you are having a baby." I waved the doctor's report in front of her face, watching her expression change from disbelief to shock to something that looked almost like panic. "Dr. Martinez at Portland General would disagree with you. 12 weeks, 2 days to be exact. Due date May 28th. Dad had gone from pale to completely gray, and he sank down onto the nearest chair like his legs could not support him anymore. "Why didn't you tell us? If we had known you were pregnant, we never would have asked you to watch the kids." "Really? You never would have asked me to babysit if you knew I was pregnant. But asking me to give up my Thanksgiving plans to provide free childcare was perfectly reasonable, as long as I was just your sad single daughter with nothing better to do." Mom finally found her voice, and it came out as a strangled whisper. "Sweetheart, please, you have to understand. We didn't know. If we had realized you were expecting, we would have handled this completely differently." "You would have handled it differently?" I repeated slowly. "Or you would not have tricked me into coming here at all." Sarah was still staring at the ultrasound photos like they might disappear if she concentrated hard enough. "This changes everything," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "We already paid for the resort. Marcus used his company connections to get us this deal. We cannot just cancel now." "Then take your precious kids with you," I said, my voice growing stronger with every word. "They are your children, Sarah. Your responsibility, not mine. I am not your built-in babysitter, just because I made the mistake of being born second." "But you cannot just leave." Sarah's voice was getting higher and more frantic. "You flew all the way out here. You said you quit your job. You have to stay now." I looked around the room at my family, really seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time in my adult life. Dad, who had manipulated me with fake vulnerability and emotional blackmail. Mom, who had gone along with the deception even though she knew it was wrong. And Sarah, who even now was more concerned about her vacation plans than the fact that she had just learned her sister was pregnant. "I am leaving tonight," I said, pulling out my phone to call another Uber. "I'm going back to Portland, back to my life, and back to people who actually care about me as a human being, rather than as free labor." "Christina, please." Dad tried one more time, his voice breaking in what might have been genuine emotion, or might have been another manipulation tactic. "We can cancel the trip. We can work this out. You are carrying my grandchild." I paused in the middle of dialing and looked at him with new eyes. "Now I am carrying your grandchild. 5 minutes ago, I was just the family disappointment who should be grateful for the chance to clean up after everyone else's kids." It is amazing how fast perspectives can change when there is something in it for you. The Uber arrived in less than 15 minutes, which was exactly how long it took me to throw my belongings back into my suitcase and grab the gifts I'd bought for people who clearly did not deserve them. As I wheeled my luggage toward the door, the family dynamics in that house shifted in ways that would have been fascinating to watch if I had not been so emotionally exhausted. Dad kept following me around, alternating between apologies and attempts to bargain. "We can fix this, Christina. Let me call Marcus and tell him we need to postpone. Your mother and I can stay here with you and the kids." But his offers felt hollow, motivated by guilt and the sudden realization that he was about to become a grandfather rather than any genuine understanding of how badly he had hurt me. Mom tried a different approach, appealing to my emotions with tears and pleas. "You cannot leave like this, sweetheart. What about the baby? You need family support during pregnancy. We want to be part of this child's life." The irony was not lost on me that she was suddenly concerned about family support after orchestrating a plan that would have left me alone with 3 young children while 6 months pregnant. But it was Sarah's reaction that sealed my decision to walk away, even after seeing the ultrasound photos, even after realizing I had quit my job to be there, even after understanding that I was carrying her first niece or nephew. She was still primarily focused on how my departure would affect her vacation plans. "This is so selfish. Christina, Marcus worked really hard to arrange this trip. You cannot just ruin everything because you decided to have some kind of dramatic meltdown." I stopped packing and turned to look at her directly. Selfish. I'm selfish for not wanting to provide free babysitting services while pregnant, for not wanting to be manipulated and lied to by my own family, for expecting to be treated with basic human respect. That is not what I meant. She backpedaled quickly, but the damage was already done. "I just think you are overreacting. We are family. Family helps each other out." "You are absolutely right," I agreed, slinging my purse over my shoulder. Family does help each other out. Family is honest with each other. Family celebrates good news together instead of trying to figure out how to use it for their own benefit. But that is not what this is, Sarah. This is you wanting me to enable your lifestyle while contributing nothing meaningful to mine. The 3 kids had been watching this entire drama unfold with wide eyes, probably understanding more than the adults realized. Emma had finally put down her tablet, Tyler had stopped flying his airplane around, and little Zoe was clutching her mother's leg with both arms. They knew their stable world was suddenly shifting, that the vacation they had been promised was in jeopardy, and that the aunt they barely knew was at the center of it all. "What am I supposed to tell Marcus?" Sarah demanded as I headed toward the door where my Uber driver was waiting patiently. "He is going to think I cannot even manage my own family relationships." "Tell him the truth," I suggested. "Tell him that you assumed your sister would drop everything to provide free childcare without bothering to ask her first. Tell him that you found out she is pregnant and your reaction was to worry about your vacation plans. Tell him whatever you want, Sarah. It stopped being my problem the moment I decided to value myself more than your convenience." Dad made one last desperate attempt as I reached for the door handle. "Christina, please. You are upset and pregnant and not thinking clearly. Stay tonight, sleep on it, and we will talk in the morning when everyone has calmed down." I turned back to him. This man who had raised me and supposedly loved me and felt a strange sense of peace settle over my anger. "Dad, I am thinking more clearly right now than I have in years. I'm not upset about being pregnant. I'm not upset about quitting my job. I'm upset that it took both of those things for you to realize that I'm a person whose feelings and time and life choices matter." As I walked out that door, pulling my suitcase behind me, I could hear Sarah arguing with Mom about whether they could still make their flight if they hurried. and Dad frantically trying to call Marcus to explain the situation. None of them followed me to the car. None of them made any real attempt to understand why I was leaving or how they might repair the damage they had caused. The Uber driver helped me load my luggage and asked if I was okay, after noticing the tears I had not realized were streaming down my face. Family trouble, I explained, and he nodded knowingly without asking for details. During the 40-minute drive back to the airport, I rebooked my flight for the red-eye back to Portland, changed my return date to that same night, and paid the ridiculous change fees without caring about the cost. As the plane lifted off from Denver, I pressed my face against the window and watched the lights of my hometown disappear below. For the first time since I had gotten Dad's initial phone call, I felt like I could breathe properly. The tightness in my chest was loosening, replaced by something that felt almost like relief. I spent the flight thinking about my baby, about the life I was building in Portland, and about the kind of family I wanted to create for my child. Not the kind that used manipulation and guilt to get what they wanted. Not the kind that treated some members as more valuable than others, the kind that celebrated each other's successes, supported each other through challenges, and treated everyone with dignity and respect. By the time I landed in Portland at 2 a.m, I had made several important decisions about my future, none of which included regular visits to Denver or free babysitting services for Sarah's children. The first few weeks after returning to Portland were admittedly difficult. I had to deal with the reality of being unemployed while pregnant, which meant filing for temporary unemployment benefits and starting an intense job search during the holiday season when nobody was hiring. My savings account took a serious hit from the last-minute flight changes and the income gap, but somehow I felt lighter and more hopeful than I had in years. My boyfriend Jake, who I had been dating for 8 months and had told about the pregnancy just days before my family called, stepped up in ways that showed me what real family support actually looked like. He helped me update my resume, drove me to job interviews, and never once suggested that I should have handled the Denver situation differently. When I broke down crying while telling him about Sarah's reaction to my pregnancy news, he held me and said, "Their loss, Christina. Their complete loss." 3 weeks after my disastrous trip home, I landed a better job at a larger marketing firm with excellent maternity benefits and a starting salary 15% higher than what I'd been making before. My new boss, Patricia, was a woman in her 50s who had built her career while raising 3 kids. And during my interview, she said, "Congratulations on your pregnancy. We believe in supporting working mothers here." The calls from Denver started almost immediately after I returned to Portland. Dad phoned twice a day for the first week, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails, asking me to call him back so we could work through this misunderstanding. Mom sent text messages with photos of baby clothes she had seen while shopping, along with messages like, "Thinking of you and my grandchild," and "Please call when you are ready to talk." Sarah took a different approach entirely. Her messages were defensive and accusatory, focusing on how my dramatic exit had ruined their family vacation and caused problems in her marriage. According to her, Marcus was questioning her family's stability and wondering if their relationship dynamics were healthy for their own children. She seemed to think that if she could just explain the situation correctly, I would realize that I had overreacted and everything could go back to the way it was before. I did not respond to any of them for 6 weeks. The silence was not out of spite or revenge. I genuinely needed time and space to process what had happened and figure out how I wanted to move forward. During those weeks, I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. Dr. Kim helped me understand that what I had experienced was not just a misunderstanding or poor communication, but a pattern of manipulation and emotional exploitation that had probably been going on my entire life. "You have been trained to prioritize their needs over your own," she explained during one of our sessions. "When they called you for help, your immediate response was to sacrifice your job security and financial stability without even asking what kind of help they actually needed. That kind of automatic self-sacrifice does not develop overnight." She was right. Looking back at my childhood and young adult years, I could see dozens of examples where I had been expected to accommodate Sarah's needs, support my parents' decisions, and generally make myself smaller, so everyone else could be more comfortable. The Denver incident was just the most extreme example of a dynamic that had been shaping our relationships for decades. When my daughter Lily was born on a beautiful May morning, weighing 6 pounds and 11 ounces with a full head of dark hair, my first call was to Jake's parents, who had driven down from Seattle to be there for the birth. My second call was to my best friend Maria, who brought flowers and chocolate and cried happy tears while holding my perfect baby girl. I waited 3 days before I called my parents. Christina. Dad's voice was thick with emotion when he answered the phone. Oh, sweetheart, we have been so worried about you. How are you feeling? How is the baby? She is beautiful, Dad. Her name is Lily Christine, and she is absolutely perfect. There was a long pause, and then I heard Mom crying in the background. Can we come see her? We have been waiting so long to meet our granddaughter. I would like that, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. But we need to talk first. Really talk about what happened and how things are going to be different going forward. They flew out to Portland 2 weeks later, and for the first time in my adult life, they came to visit me on my terms. They stayed in a hotel instead of assuming they could take over my apartment. They asked before holding the baby instead of just reaching for her. They brought thoughtful gifts that I had actually mentioned wanting instead of generic items they thought I should have. Most importantly, they listened when I explained how their actions had affected me and what I needed from our relationship moving forward. Dad apologized without making excuses or trying to minimize what had happened. Mom acknowledged that she had been wrong to go along with the deception, even though she had known it would hurt me. We took you for granted, Dad admitted during a quiet moment while he was holding Lily. We assumed you would always be available when we needed you, and we did not consider what you might be sacrificing to help us. That was selfish and wrong. Sarah took longer to come around. She spent months oscillating between genuine apologies and defensive justifications for her behavior. It was not until her own marriage started showing serious strain that she began to understand how toxic their family dynamics had become. Marcus had apparently been questioning their relationship patterns and suggesting family therapy after witnessing how they had treated me. Our relationship now is different than it was before, and honestly, it is much healthier. We talk on the phone every few weeks instead of every few months. When I visit Denver, which I do twice a year, I stay in a hotel and maintain my own schedule. When they visit Portland, they respect my boundaries and my role as Lily's mother. Most importantly, I have learned to value myself enough to speak up when something does not feel right, instead of automatically sacrificing my own needs for the sake of family harmony. Lily will grow up seeing a mother who knows her own worth, who maintains loving but healthy relationships with extended family, and who understands that true love and respect cannot coexist with manipulation and exploitation. The hardest lesson I learned from that Thanksgiving disaster was that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who claim to love us most. But the most valuable lesson was that I had the power to change those dynamics by changing how I responded to them. I could love my family without letting them use me. I could maintain relationships without sacrificing my self-respect. Today, as I watch my 2-year-old daughter play in our sunny Portland backyard while Jake works in his home office and my career continues to flourish, I am grateful for that awful night when everything fell apart. It forced me to examine what I was willing to accept in the name of family loyalty, and it gave me the courage to demand better. Sometimes the best thing you can do for the people you love is to stop enabling their worst behaviors toward you. Sometimes walking away is not giving up on family, it is giving them the opportunity to learn how to treat you with the respect you deserve. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your own children is the example of a parent who knows their worth and insists on being treated accordingly. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where family members took advantage of your kindness? How did you handle it, and what advice would you give to someone struggling with similar boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and the courage it takes to stand up for yourself. And please share this video with anyone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by how much they sacrifice for others. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and genuine love. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people who truly value you.